So today in class, we are kind of starting to look at Supreme Court cases. We're just going to kind of look at one as kind of an intro, and then next week we're going to kind of start doing some research on our own a little bit. So, um, first one we're going to look at is Gideon versus Wainwright, 1963. And this case is a pretty important case. It pretty much results in all Americans, regardless of where your case is being tried, having the right to a lawyer. Before this, that wasn't necessarily the case, as we will see. So, being your own lawyer, if you had to represent yourself in court, would you know what to do? Would you be successful if the other side had a lawyer? Probably not. In 1961, Clarence Earl Gideon was charged with breaking into a Florida pool hall and stealing some beverages and about $5 in cash. So $5 in 1961, definitely more money than now. Still, not a terrible amount of money. He could not afford a lawyer, so he asked the court to appoint one for him. The court refused. Under Florida law, only a person charged with a crime could result in the death penalty could have a free court-appointed lawyer. Gideon defended himself in front of the jury. He examined witnesses and made legal arguments, but it wasn't enough. The jury found him guilty and sentenced him to 5 years in prison. While in prison, this is the argument. So this is what Gideon does to advocate for himself, and he does this from prison on his own. No one's helping him do this. He educates himself in the prison library and does this. It's pretty neat. While in prison, Gideon petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court about his case. He argued that the Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guaranteed him the right to a lawyer. The Sixth Amendment says that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. The Supreme Court had already said that in federal courts, this meant people accused of a crime must be given a lawyer even if they can't afford one. Gideon argued that the same thing should be true in state courts. And we'll see why it wasn't the case here in a second. So this is the Supreme Court's decision. The Supreme Court agreed. The Constitution is a federal document. This is why it didn't apply to the states at first, which meant that legally the rights it contains only protect people when dealing with the federal government. The court had already ruled that states do not need to give people those same rights unless the right is fundamental to a fair trial. The court now said that the right to a lawyer is a fundamental right. A person cannot be assured of a fair trial without one. So they're saying this is why you need to have one, because if you can't have a lawyer, you're not going to get a fair trial. The court wrote, even the intelligent and educated layman lacks both the skill and knowledge adequately to prepare his defense. So when they say layman, they're just meaning the average person. Even if that person's defense would prove he or she is not guilty. So even if they have a good defense and can prove themselves, it's still going to be difficult for them to win because they don't understand how the court works. People accused of crime need a lawyer because they don't understand all the rules and procedures that take place during the trial. So what? Why does this matter? When the Supreme Court sent Gideon's case back to the lower court, Gideon received a lawyer and a new jury trial. This time, the lawyer presented evidence that proved Gideon was not guilty. So he wins. Pretty neat. Because of the case, and he might have won. He might have won initially had he had a lawyer. Because of this case, states must now provide a lawyer to criminal defendants who cannot afford one. Public defenders are lawyers employed by the state to represent these criminal defendants. Public defenders work to make sure people accused of crime get a fair trial. Criminal defendants have certain rights under the Constitution, and public defenders make sure those rights are protected. So now at this point, you're doing this part, and you're going to do this part on this paper that I've attached here. You'll have to make a copy because I forgot to make everyone a copy at once. But you're just going to match the freedoms listed here with the Supreme Court cases that gave them to us. So you'll notice some of the amendments are on there twice because these amendments give us multiple rights. Gideon's argued that the Sixth Amendment gave him the right to a lawyer, which it does, but it also gives you the right to a speedy and public trial. So you just have to match up the situation described in each case with what makes sense here. And I realize we haven't really looked at the amendments yet. We're going to do so in depth after we get done with the judicial branch. But along the way, while we're looking at the judicial branch, we're going to be learning about these amendments as well. So it's just a good time to kind of start acquainting yourself with them. If you need to do a little research, that's fine too. If you have questions for me, that's fine too. But I'll just read through these instructions here, and then I'll let you go. So In 1833, the Supreme Court said the rights listed in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution only applied at the national level, not at the state level. One by one, over time, the court has decided that certain rights do apply at the state level. Match the following rights with the cases that apply them to the state level. And the 14th Amendment is a big part of why that happens, but that's something we'll get into later. So you're just looking at each one of these things, reading the description, and matching it with what makes sense here. I think that makes sense. If you have questions, please let me know. And then later, you're gonna do Gideon's case. So you're gonna make it look like this. So tell me which amendment applies to Gideon. Tell me what the right is that's associated with it, and then Gideon versus Wainwright, and then here, or here down here at the bottom of this, you're just going to give a brief summary of Gideon's case, like all the other ones are done there. So again, let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, have a good weekend. Bye.